There is. We got a remote for it. It's in the other room.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
What's up? What the hell is going on with you?
So we're going to start this podcast, video cast, I guess, and we're going to start doing this every day. And eventually, as this grows, we're going to have people come and join us and talk about their lives and talk about what's going on in their world. Stacy right now is working on her master's degree. And
yes, I am.
If anybody's done a master's or a PhD, you know that it's a lot of work. And she's neck deep in it.
Gives me anxiety. The writing part that I'm on right now is just giving me so much anxiety, but I just got to jump through the hoops and do it up. A lot of the writing that I'm doing is in relation to how COVID-19 affects the yoga world. So I have contacted so many different people that are related to yoga. I actually had an interview with Yoga Journal, which was kind of a highlight of my interview process. I had interviews with ashrams and just a lot of yoga studios, and then I found Yogi Ramesh Pandey, who's a guru from India, and he said that he will be my guru. And a guru is an enlightened spiritual master, and a lot of times people go to India searching for a guru, but they come back empty-handed because it's almost impossible to find one now. So through my research, I found him, and it was so amazing to be with him and communicate with him on that level of laughter yoga. Mm-hmm. And it just felt, one of the Zooms that I did with him felt like if you could have a piece of enlightenment, that's what I got from him. It was so beautiful. I was in tears. He's just so amazing. He helps people. He helps cancer patients. He's big on breathing, getting more oxygen into the blood to help people live longer. And he spends a lot of time just all day long trying to help people. So he's very special to me. And let's see, I met people from all over the country, and a few people in, I think one in New Zealand, and then one in an island. I forget what island it was. But
you had one from Africa too.
I had one from Africa. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And so it was just amazing. I interviewed the Yoga Alliance, which is the overarching organization for certifications in yoga. And so I interviewed psychics. I interviewed so many different people. It was just so much fun. I have 135 interviews that I've been doing, and now I'm transcribing them to fill them in to the gaps of my thesis. So that'll be the narrative, the biggest part, the discussion of what I learned and what themes are present in this work that I'm doing. And a major theorist that I've been focusing on, because we have to do methods and theory, my method was snowball sampling, which means I interviewed one person and then they referred me to another person and then they referred me to another person, which created a snowball effect. And then the theory element is how to do theorists and anthropology fit into what I'm doing. A major one that I am working with is Appadurai, Ajahn Appadurai. He's from India, and I've been reading his book called Modernity at Large, and it is a very eye-opening book on his perspective on globalization and following the histories back, like for example in India, going back to the early 1800s and how the British were ruling that time period in India, and how the Indians pushed back against that force by doing yoga and making all these movements in asana as a pushback, showing their strength and showing their that they can be strong for this colonization. And another game that they did was called cricket. And this was a game that the British colonizers actually let Indian boys into play. So they actually got to experience this with that level of colonization And over time, it became more of an Indian sport, and it's because they put so much emphasis on it. You had TV, advertising at that point, and radio, and so it just exploded and became very big. And so that's kind of what I've been researching a little bit lately. And then looking at the history of yoga, it's very important. I'm going to the turn of the century when Krishnamacharya and BKS Iyengar and Yogananda came over to the United States in the 1960s, because during Prohibition there was no in and out airplane flights. And so they came after that, and then people started to change their thinking, and the Enlightenment period was going on, and they wanted something different. And so yoga gave that to them. Yoga gave them a sort of spiritual capital, if you will. In exchange with the yogis and the gurus, they gained this spiritual awareness that they had never found before, because our society is predominantly Christian, Protestant, and so these people started to gravitate towards something else. And the histories and the tradition of yoga, and what that even means, it's a culture that's evolved over time. It's a 5,000-year-old culture. And to break that down is almost just the craziest thing you could ever try to imagine. So that's why I'm just going to the turn of the century and how that influenced the United States over time.
I think the biggest growth here in the States was between, say, the 1920s and through, the 60s and 70s explosion, and then of course in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there's a big boom for just exercise in general, and yoga became known and more and grew more and more.
Starting in the 90s.
Yeah, what was it, 2000, 2006,
2006, it just took off like a wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
We had Catherine Buttig, who posed on the cover of Yoga Journal with her toe socks, and she was completely almost naked. So that was the image that people had for yoga, and a lot of people shied away from that because we're all different bodies, and I think yoga is for everybody. And so we don't need these images of these women that are scantily clad and not wearing anything to show as an advertisement for just your regular woman who wants to participate in yoga.
A lot of times they'll take photos of themselves doing a complicated asana, but it's all about location, and they would be like on a rock face over the ocean, and there's actually been incidents where they've fallen and hurt themselves or even died, all for what I call the theater of yoga, and it's all for clicks and likes, and
Exactly.
Yoga is a meditative practice. It's done either at home with your own self, or it's done in small groups, and so there's that side of yoga, but there's another side of yoga that's commercialized, and they're capitalizing on it through yoga pants and mats and just all the accessories. Lululemon.
Paying $100 for a mat, $100 for a pair of yoga pants.
What is it, $30 billion a year industry?
$6.8 billion.
$6.8 billion. I mean, that's
and I don't know
change.
if that's gone lower since COVID hit. It probably has. I can't say for sure because I don't have any document that would say that, but a lot of people did lose money, and then they went to digital format, some of them almost immediately when COVID happened. And yoga means a lot of different things to different people. And the most profound answer that I got that really resonated with me is self-love. And that yoga can give you that self-love that sometimes you don't feel like you have. And so I had a lot of questions about what people thought of yoga and what it means. And sometimes I was actually in tears by what their responses were. And it was just so important to some people, and yoga studio owners, and just people who do yoga and find that tradition that they can connect with. Sometimes it's just an exercise class, like hot yoga and stuff like that, but I tried to look for more traditional styles of yoga to get that history. I interviewed a lady that was a student of Yogi Bhajan, and there have been some scandals with yoga. I interviewed John Friend, and he had that scandal with Anusara Yoga, but he moved on. It's in his past, and he created a new form of movement called Bowspring, and it's absolutely amazing. It kind of goes against the grain of your regular postural yoga, and so I'm diving deep into that. I'm starting to take classes now and I wouldn't have known this unless I talked to John Friend and I started interviewing other women who did Bowspring practice. They sometimes call it yoga because some of the movement is related to yoga, but it's a more dynamic, fluid movement rather than rolling your shoulder back and the crown of the head going up. Just giving you your more natural posture rather than trying to fake it with this shoulders and head up. I mean, think about it. If I looked like this all the time, seriously, I don't think that works. So
Look at me, I'm just not like
I just feel like a military person if I do that.
right.
Yay, I'm a military person. No, I'm actually a yogi, but actually, that's another thing I learned. I talked to David in Hawaii, he studied under Patavi Joyce, and he brought back some Ashtanga yoga that had never been seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the definition of yoga is not yoga today, that what yoga is meditation. And I really, thought about that, and the word yogi is tossed around quite a bit. And I think it should be yoga practitioner or yoga student rather than yogi, because a yogi is a lifetime student that's studied for 50 years. So you can't toss around the word yogi like that without some deep, rich history behind you, the text, the spiritual element, the truth that you can find through going up through the chakras and understanding that energy with the subtle body and things like that. So anyway.
Yeah. Yogi is just a step below a guru. And, some will say that, what was his name? Ram Dass will say that we are our own gurus. And so there's differing points of view. All of them have to be taken into account, of course. So, Stacy's been working on this now for 2 years, and I'm just impressed. I was a professor at Boise State for a number of years, and I saw a lot of ancillary graduate professor, and I saw a lot of ideas float past my desk and students taking on these different challenges. And Stacy's thesis and her thesis is that the way COVID manifested and then affect the international, multinational practice of yoga, and COVID affected everybody in varying ways, in some very, very powerful ways, some extreme ways. And then also it seems, so far from what I'm watching her do and her doing her interviews and writing and us talking, of course, is that yoga has gone through an evolution, and a very rapid evolution in the last years. So COVID did have a big impact on yoga, and in some cases very sad impacts where people lost their businesses, they were shut down, they couldn't practice, they couldn't meet with other people, and from that a lot of people went to an online class.
And they had to figure it out quick.
Very quickly.
And there were people that were marketing that on helping people go digital, so they made a lot of money during that time. And so it was kind of a learning curve for people to go digital like that, and to say the right cues. And how do you see the people if they're in a little box? How do you focus in on the actual structure of the movement if you can't even see people, or if they're blacked out because they don't want to be seen? And so that's one of the problems that I found with doing digital courses. However, when I did the Bowspring course, what she did was talk through the cueing, and then she had somebody else doing the actual Bowspring practice, which I thought was perfect because I could see the Bowspring practice and hear her words the way that it was supposed to be. And so she knew exactly what to say and how to, cue the movement and stuff like that. I thought that was just a great style of online, and I did a online participation ethnography to get insight into the digital world.
Yeah. So today she's going to be back at it, of course. We just wanted to take a minute and have a conversation and let you know what's going on in our world and how what the kinds of things that Stacy's up to, and this is the kind of trend we want in our video podcast, is just to have conversations and hopefully enlighten people. Things that yoga practitioners right now that hear this might think, wow, I never thought of it that way. Wow, I never knew that history. Wow, I do online courses and I do feel this way when I'm online. Exactly what Stacy just said, how you feel like an outsider. You're not in the class. You're not, the instructor can't come over and adjust your elbow a little bit.
Well, what I think is amazing is how far Chris has come with the knowledge of yoga, because before I met him, he didn't know much about yoga at all. So through this evolution, I've seen him just really dive deep into the Sanskrit, the music, the kirtan, and even the asanas and things like that. We haven't been doing that a lot. We've been kind of a recluse and going inward, but we're ready to go outward with our gifts and start teaching again and do kirtan, and which is meditative song to the divine. And so it's been neat to see you go through that evolutionary process.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I got on the bus.
He got on the Bhakti bus. And that's
well,
where
thanks,
we're
guys.
at, is the Bhakti bus. We live in an RV,
we live in an RV. That's our home.
Yeah.
And well, thank you for listening. And
yeah, thank you. Hopefully, we'll see you soon. And be sure to click the follow. Thank you.